Welcome back to Method Cooking. Tonight we're making Anna potatoes. Really simple preparation. I like to use russet potatoes because I've always got them on hand. You can use them in a dozen different ways. So first thing with the potato, we're going to give it a quick rinse in some cold water. Just get any excess mud off the outside. To that, we're going to slice off just the tip. And then with a mandolin, you can find it almost any home goods store or any cooking store. We're going to go back and forth, slicing it very thin. I like to keep the skin on it because not only does that hold the potato together, gives it a little bit more color and a little bit more texture. As you can see, I'm putting these into a bowl without any water. If you were doing something like potato chips where you didn't want the potatoes to stick together, you want to soak in water to get some of that starch out, but I'm leaving them in a dry bowl because I want that starch to remain so that when I start stacking them in the pan, they'll hold together. As you get close to the end, you're going to want to be really careful with your fingers. When the potato was larger, I was going back and forth, but now once we get down towards that kind of nub, I'm just going to go down, lift it up, because these ceramic blades or even a metal blade on a mandolin are very sharp, and it's very easy to lose the tip of your fingers. I melted just a little bit of butter and a splash of vegetable oil in a small nonstick pan. Now we're going to start building the Palms Anna. When you're doing it, you got to remember that what you put in first is going to end up on the top. So we're going to do a circular pattern, put one in the middle, and just kind of slowly fan our way out, making circles around the center. Again, the potatoes don't have to be perfectly circle, but again, we're going to layer them out until we cover the entire bottom of the pan. And then between layers, because we want to season all the potatoes, we're going to do a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, some dried thyme, and then continue on to the next layer. So there's layer one. Come in with just a little bit of salt, some fresh pepper, a little bit of dried thyme, and then on to the next layer. Again, starting in the center and slowly making our way out. So I've got about 4 or 5 layers. I'm going to do the last one now. Again, starting in the center and making my way out. You want to make sure you get all the way to the edge so it's almost like a perfect pancake. After we get this in the pan, we're going to go over to the stove. I'm going to start on a pretty high heat because I want that bottom to get nice and brown and crispy, and that's going to be the top once we're done and we flip it. And then about halfway, maybe 3/4 way through the cooking process, we're going to flip it over and finish it. And as we cook it, we're going to add a little bit of butter around the outside just to make sure that bottom is getting nice and brown and crispy. With the non-stick pan with the potatoes on the range, like I said, we're got like a medium-high, almost high heat. You can start to see it bubble around the outside. We're just going to kind of slowly lift the pan forward, backwards, side to side to make sure that butter and the entire bottom is cooking and getting crispy. You don't want to mess with it too much because then it's going to start falling apart on the bottom and you're not going to end up with that beautiful presentation. As you start to hear the butter simmer and kind of pop, we're going to add in little chunks of butter around the outside, just because again we're almost frying the bottom, which is going to be the top of the Anna potatoes. And then as it starts to hold together, we're going to get ready to flip it. As the potatoes start to cook, you'll see it kind of pull tighter to the center of the pan, and if you move it around just a little bit, the whole thing should be able to slide around almost as if you were cooking a pancake. What I like to do with that medium-high heat, turn it back down to just a little bit over medium, and every now and then lift the pan up a little bit, and kind of shift it to all sides just to get that butter all over the place. And if you look at that kind of bottom layer, you can see just the edges are starting to brown, so we're almost ready to flip it. With the pancakes, you can start to see the bottom, like 2 or 3 layers, starting to brown up and cook a little bit. So we're going to shake the pan a little bit, make sure the whole thing is moving as one unit. Set it down, use a small spatula. We're going to peek just under the side to make sure it's getting nice and brown and crispy. Looks perfect. So to there's lots of different ways to flip the potatoes over to finish cooking them, because right now, like the top third, maybe 2/3 are cooked, but we got to finish out the bottom. You could just flip it in the pan, or kind of like the safety bet of what I like to do is flip it onto either a plate or a small sheet tray and then slide it back into the pan. As I get ready to flip it, I'm going to take a little bit of pan spray the sheet tray so it slides right off. As I pull over the frying pan, I'm going to tilt it up on its side so all that oil and butter kind of pulls at the bottom. And using a paper towel, I'm going to soak some of that up, just so when I flip it, I'm not sending butter and oil all over the place. Set that paper towel to the side. I'm going to set the sheet tray on top of the frying pan, and then one quick motion, I'm going to flip it over, and we should be good to go. So with the small pan and the small sheet tray, I'm going to put it over the top, with a couple fingers hold it in place, flip it over really quick, and there's our Anna potatoes that we are going to slide back into the pan, finish up, and then we're ready to serve. With the anna potatoes flipped over, add a little bit more butter on the outside. So we're just going to finish cooking that bottom third. This should only take a minute or two. Then we're going to dab that extra butter and oil off and get it on the plate. With the potatoes done, we're going to bring them over to the plate. I've got another piece of paper towel, and again I'm just going to dab some of that butter and oil out of the bottom of the pan. From there, I'm going to slide that right onto the plate. A little bit of that oil, we'll scoop up with that paper towel. Garnish it with a little bit of fresh thyme, and from there it's ready to serve. As far as serving suggestions, you could use this as a side dish to any place you'd normally use potatoes. It's got a lot of the same flavor, but it presents really nice. And it's just kind of like a different way to look at and cook potatoes. Traditionally, it's cut into wedges, almost like you would a pie, and you could serve it alongside any sort of pork, chicken, beef, seafood that you want to. It's just kind of doing something a little bit different with what you've already got at home.